percentage
Next up,
less than what they're offering. It's much less because again, if you've been shopping for vehicles, you know this, you know the game. You know that game. We sat at the dealership one time, we were in California. We lived in Simi Valley. Mitsubishi in Simi Valley, which was 5 minutes away from my home, would not sell me the car. But I had to go all the way almost 200 miles to a whole nother city to buy the same car that I could have bought right in my own neighborhood.
Okay, goes back to that zip code thing. Goes back to that zip code.
Hey, how's everybody doing? This is the Sigma Lenny Show. I hope everybody's having a good day. Right now, we're going to have a really good show today. We're going to pretty much talk a little bit about a little bit of finance, credit, to kind of help you guys out there. And we have some guests here today. We're going to let everybody pretty much introduce themselves, starting with Tyrone. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and let them know, who you are.
Hey, Lenny, thank you for having me. My name is Tyrone Glover, and I'm the CEO of Leverage Credit Recovery. And I'm here today to talk over some of those important pieces of what we should be looking forward to when it comes to our credit. And thank you for, again, the topic of the show, which is the state of your credit. So, again, Tyrone Glover, the CEO of Leverage Credit Recovery.
All right. And we're going to go next with Jay. Go ahead and introduce yourself, man.
Name is Jay Anderson, Yonkers, New York. I'm just part of the show just to explain, as far as credit is concerned, I'm a victim of that credit crunch and how I dug myself out of it, and to give tips and recommendations on how not to make your credit affect your life.
Absolutely. And Kia, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Kia. I'm coming from Minnesota, Wilmer, Minnesota, and I am here to discuss how I ended up getting out of bad debt and how I ended up getting out of bad credit. And I started from pretty much the lowest of the lowest. So I'm here to discuss it with you guys today.
Awesome. Yes, and for me, as y'all know, I'm Sigma Lenny. And yes, I've been through it all, especially knowing credit. It was a tough road for me, so I'm here as a student as well. So Mr. Tyrone, you are the credit expert. So we're going to hear from you and, let us know, man. We got people out here with, bad credit and they're like, man, is it over for me? Is there any way out? How can I dig myself out of this hole, so I can get to the finer things in life? As all of us, we all want, the finer things in life. I assume everyone wants that. So, go ahead and tell us, man, what are some of the things, we can do, or what are some of the things that we should know about as it pertains to credit?
Well, awesome question. Again, equally, I'm glad to see Jay. I'm glad to see Kia. I'm hoping that this conversation also sparks other conversations to also equally be had, because this is what we should be doing and not afraid or running from this topic of finances and credit. So again, to Jay and Kia, thank you for taking out of your day or making that time, which I tell is really important now. Shouldn't be trying to find the time, finding that time. I want anybody out there who can honestly say, have you ever found time? Did you ever walk around the corner and go, oh yeah, hey, time, there you are. Hi, come here. I need some of you. No, it doesn't happen that way. So you have to literally make that time, and you guys chose to make that time. So that's the first thing I always want to tell people. Thank you for what you do, because we don't get enough of that thank you for our contribution. So again, I'm just here as a coach. I'm just here as most institutions and organizations, and really things have to have some form of a leadership or some form of a driver of that force. So that's me. I'm just, whatever questions you guys may have, if you've been doing something right or wrong, I hope we can kind of get that resolved too here, as well as we go over other information. But your question to what is it that we can do first? Well, first and foremost, stop blaming ourselves. That's the first thing you have to do. Stop blaming yourself. Oh my God, I can't believe I don't have a car. Can't believe I don't have an apartment. Can't believe I don't have this. Can't believe blah, 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 blah. Stop. The guilt that you carry is only 10% of your actual contribution to your mistakes when it comes to credit. Because first and foremost, you didn't really have all of the information that you needed. And that's why I'm weighing it so lightly towards us, the consumer, if you know what I know. So first and foremost, stop blaming yourself. There are more factors behind race, location, job status. I mean, there's multiple things that are factored into your credit, and we're taking on way too much of it. So stop blaming yourselves. And now I'm going to help you with orchestrating how to put that understanding directly on whom it belongs. Then you can start taking the necessary steps to correcting. And I also strategically use perfect words for the fact you can't fix, you can't repair credit. Those are the two things that I got to tell you. You can't fix, you can't repair. Cannot. You can't fix, you can't repair. Those are things that are associated with damage, things that are associated with, again, non-repairable items. Credit is more a behavioral thing. So when you have issues that are behavioral, you have to more or less focus on recovering from them. So that's why we've equally made our name something that reinforces the methodology of how we actually go about teaching individuals or coaching individuals through credit mishaps. So you have to recover from your misunderstandings, misinformation, and the other 90% that we're going to talk about as well is also related and tied to the things that really create your credit problems: Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. These are the major three corporations, institutions, for-profit institutions that, again, just think about how business structure works. Business is about making a profit. And if you got 325 plus million consumers, you're going to make a pretty good profit if you can deter or prevent 70% of that of a certain percentage of the population from achieving the excellence of getting to an 850 or whatever number you strive to get to. So, this today is really all about questions that you can give me, and then obviously I can give you back some of those things that would help you really start looking at credit completely different, because we're going to have to start monitoring it. We're going to have to start doing, if we lost this, you know how freaked out we would be? Be like, oh my God, where's my phone? Oh my Lord, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Just going crazy. And we need to have that same attention, that same attitude towards our credit. So just gave it to you in a nutshell. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And again, thank you so much, Lenny, for having me to the show. Kia, as an African-American young woman, I can't thank you enough, because women rule the world. Women are doing great things. We have a black young lady making it to the Supreme Court. Can't wait for that to shake it all up. We have an amazing first vice president is a female. So women have, and they will continue to keep. And I can't thank all of our black women who get out there and do what they must do. So peace and love to all of my sisters, no matter how many of us as black men don't say what we need to, but keep on keeping on. Sisters are doing their thing, so keep on. And then Jeff, we just know each other from as colleagues, and your wisdom and input has always been great and interesting at times to digest. But you have been one of those who I can always consult with and come up with some great ideas. So bring it.
All right. So, I'm going to hold my questions first because I have a lot. But we're going to start with Kia. We're going to let the ladies first, right? That's being a gentleman, right? So we're going to let Kia speak. So what questions you have for Mr. Tyrone as it pertains to credit?
Okay. So the questions that I have, Mr. Tyrone, when it comes to credit, as far as even something as simple as getting a car, what should your credit score look like?
Credit is a funny thing, and I'm going to try to keep all of these within like a 1 minute, one and a half, because this way, you know, these questions could get all tied up and jungled up and crazed. But again, if you don't get the answer, let me know. But I'm going to also make sure that the answer obviously is answered in every question. So credit is a complicated but not so complicated thing. Obviously, you want to have the highest score possible. That is going to be tied to your interest rates. So if you're new, just starting out, you're probably going to be an invisible person, or you could also even have a credit number already that might be associated to something that your parents did. And we know it as we are older now that our parents used our Social Security numbers for utilities, for whatever the purposes were. And that's how we may have already have. But for those just getting out there in the world, you definitely want to have something in that range of upper 700s. That's going to keep those interest rates. If you're not sure about interest rates or understanding that could be a whole different other topic that we talk about as well. But interest is what you're going to be paying on your actual borrowing of a financial product or service. So did that answer the question, Kia?
Yes, that did. That answered my question. Because like I said, when I started off, I wasn't paying attention to my credit, you know, and that's all of us as being just young and just wanting to just do what we want to do, you know. And you're right. A lot of people went through the whole parents putting things in their names, and basically it messed up. I don't want to use the words messed up. I don't want to use that word. It basically created a situation to where it became a little bit bad for us as we gotten older. Okay. So when I started, and I actually started paying attention to my credit, I was trying to get a apartment complex in North Carolina. And I'm like, yes, I can't wait to move from Minnesota. It's going to be so good. And as I'm sending my applications and she's denying me, and I'm wondering why, because it's low incoming, you know, and it shouldn't matter because it's low incoming. And she voiced it to my attention and said, hey, you at least need a 420 to get in. And I said, wait, what, ma'am? She said, ma'am, you need to look at your credit score. So as I'm going through all of my credit, everything, I'm looking at everything that happened. And this is at this point a 10-year process. Things that I was going through within the 10 years just by itself. So yes, I had some debt, you know. So what I gradually started to do was, you know what, I'll pay this off and I'll wait for this. I'll pay this off and I'll wait for that. Or you know what, let me get a credit consultant. I found myself paying too much money for the credit consultant every month. I paid Lexington Law at least $150 every month for at least 2 years just to help me. And when I mean they knocked one thing off, I mean they knocked only one thing off. It wasn't like they were physically helping me to create some kind of boundary saying, hey, this is what you pay. This is what you don't right now. This is, you know, these are the ways. And me and my sisters, we was actually having an interesting conversation the other day. And we were even talking about how credit teaching should be allowed in schools. Only because in this generation right now, these kids are starting to be a little bit more advanced than us, you know, as we were growing up and everything else. And we was having that interesting conversation like, hey, if they give it out in schools, maybe you can learn to invest at an earlier age. Maybe you can learn how to control your situations at a better age. You know, it doesn't have to be at 18, 19, 20. No, but it's just about the control. I don't want to say the mess ups, like, you know, like Mr. Glover explained, but it's the control. It's your habits. It's the things that you are doing to create these situations. So we were talking about if they give in school in public schools, maybe the kids will learn a lot more than us being thrown out into a world where we don't know none of this stuff. And that's the most important thing. Just being African American, that's just the most important thing, is being a woman. Most important thing is being a man. You know, credit is on everyone. It doesn't matter what you do, how you do it. credit is a very, very vital importancy in your life. You know, it kind of shows you exactly the extent of what you're willing to go as far as your lifestyle.
Well, it puts the, not necessarily all of the onus. Well, actually, let me rephrase it. It does. It puts all of the onus on you to be responsible, but that responsibility comes with how am I being taught a certain understanding.
I agree.
Taught a certain understanding, then you're going to go out there and you're going to do what you more or less see. And if it's not heavily known in our community, which it isn't, it's really not known in our communities to have good credit. It's sad that I have to really say that as an African American, that we don't really put a lot of emphasis on that. We're happy with 18%, 24% interest rate on a car or on a credit card. We think that's normal, when in all actuality, individuals, or not individuals, but businesses and individuals, again, thinking about credit, they're borrowing at the lowest possible interest rates. So if we really understood it, and I love the point that you brought up, which is something like this, so fundamental should be taught in school. And we're hoping to break down those barriers of having it not taught in school, because the whole American experiment was more or less created with us not in mind. And you got to remember that. When you have a system that was built, that was more or less fundamentally built broken, because it didn't include a certain percentage of the population. So as the narrative is, oh, well, individuals who want to change things automatically want to tear it down. No, we don't want to tear anything down. We just want to correct some of those things that would allow for the equity of what this country has for all of us to equally be shared amongst those who, again, if you want to have good credit, that's what you're going to do. With the information, you're going to go out there and establish good credit. If you don't, even with the information, you'll be like, nah, you know what? Not for me. And guess what? That's okay if that's your choice. But everyone should be able and equipped with what they need to be able to make that fundamental choice.
I agree.
I totally agree. There's no disagreement there. You know, credit is vitally important. That can actually make or break you. You know, if you're not knowing what you're doing with your credit. Credit, I look at, is really like it's kind of like a social security number. It kind of identifies who you are as a person as well, and that's in the eyes of businesses, or how they want to market to you. You know, it's like, oh, okay, well, now we have a justification to say, oh, okay, well, your credit is, you know, like subpar or whatever, right? So it's like, okay, well, we're going to give you the highest interest rate, you know, as possible, because that'll be our justification as to how we can charge you, you know, high interest rates and make a lot of money. So that, you know, that's kind of how I see it, you know, in terms of credit. So we're gonna get on to Jay. Jay, you have any questions for Mr. Tyrone?
Yeah, question and a comment. Being that what you said, Lenny, about Social Security. August 14th, 1935, Theodore Roosevelt came up with the general provisions of the Welfare Act. That was what Social Security was designed for. My question is that we will also acknowledge and design a TIN number. A TIN number is a business number, which was a secondary Social Security number that you was only supposed to use for businesses and personal, not for personal use. But the thing is with Social Security is that because of that number, I'm trying to figure out, I ask myself this every day, why is that number used to validate your credit score and identify you as a person, when the idea was to use that number was for the provisions of welfare, Social Security, you know, to age or, you know, due to retirement. And I just want to know, to use the TIN number, do you have to have a business, or do you have to have something in place that kind of explains why you are validating that number?
Well, again, I love the wisdom of us with the grays underneath the chin. That it just shows that we're doing a little bit of what we should be doing to educate everybody out there in the world. Gray is, for me, I used to always think, oh my God, I'm getting old. No, that's wisdom, that's knowledge, that's all that's supposed to come with. As you get older, you get smarter. So that question that Jeff posed is definitely a brilliant question, because it addresses what I myself asked myself. Well, how does the Social Security number even tie in? So you got to go back and you have to look through your history, because our history is no mystery. It's all out there. So it's great, yes. But that question is twofold. That TIN, if I'm not mistaken now, is now your EIN, which is your business number. And your Social Security, which was never supposed to be used for one thing, or for only one thing and one thing only, as Jeff indicated, for the government to be able to track how you were going to be paid your Social Security. That's all it was supposed to be used for. Because business and other entities are as lazy as we are as individuals, so we can rightfully say, yes, we get tired sometimes, we get exhausted sometimes, but we don't have to naturally add that to a narrative of that people are lazy. No, it's not. It's just that, hey, is there an easier method? But they took something that obviously made it more complicated. They put a lot of rules to it, where you can only use it for this and you can't use it for that. Like your Social Security number, I can't show my Social Security number to a cop and he could say, oh, okay, this is who you are. Can't do that. But in the world of finance, oh my God, you can use that number for whatever it wants to identify you. And it's kind of sad that the government has said to other entities, yeah, you know what? Here, piggyback off of our system, which was only designed for one specific purpose, and let's use it for a multitude of other things. So yeah,
let me ask you this.
Yes.
Now, also to add to that, what I understood, what I read with history, our President Lyndon Johnson was actually the first one to borrow money against the Social Security. So when he borrowed the money against the Social Security, is that what we do today? Like when we borrow Social Security against our homes or against our mortgages, or is that our retirement package that we get into?
And that, again, another strategically well-placed question that should help people understand. Yes, you're going to have these government entities that are going to borrow from other government entities, just like we do. We borrow from banks, we borrow from financial institutions, we borrow from third parties, we borrow from each other with a hope that as time goes on, they'll pay us back over a certain period of time, and then that interest rate that we gave them to meet their financial obligations would then pan out. So yes, the government does borrow from that Social Security, and it has, and it will continue to keep borrowing, because just think about the masses that go into. That's one program that you can honestly say is and should be well funded. But why isn't it? Because of the fact that government programs, and as you said, the Lyndon B. Johnson, he was the first president to borrow. So other presidents figured, hey, you know what? We got this pot over here. Let's keep borrowing from it. When in all actuality, in my opinion, everyone can have their own opinions. It's just my personal opinion. They should have cut the defense budget and left people's Social Security money alone. But they kind of knew what they were doing. Let's mess with these people here, hoping that we're going to make it back. They could have made it back, but unfortunately, they decided to give business too much power, allowing for business to make more money and not paying their fair share, which, in my opinion, again, depleted what we call our safety net when it comes to Social Security. Is it going to be around? They keep saying it isn't. Me personally, I believe it's going to be.
Right. And also, last comment, I want to break down just in very short terms how I got into the credit crunch. It starts, and I tell people this all the time, it all starts in college. When you go to college for your first year in college, they give you a credit card. Credit card is usually American Express. They usually set up at a table. They give you a $300 limit. I'm trying to break it down so quick. They give you a $300 credit limit. This is what happened to me.
Jeff,
you get a $300.
Hold on one second. I want to, again, I always like to just help individuals with making sure that when they're presenting it. It's not just college. It's these financial institutions back in the 70s and the 80s when credit started becoming this wild thing. It was an introduction. So it was an introduction to primarily those up here. And then as it trickled its way down, it became a bit more diluted of its instructions of what you have to do. So yes, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to clarify.
No, that's okay.
It wasn't
No,
just
but yeah, right. I appreciate it. That was just to show you basically what I went through. So with that being said, with the credit card, it was a $300 limit. American Express, when you get that card, you're in college, so you have a thing called a Pell Grant. And a Pell Grant is money that you get that college gives you, for books and stuff like that. And a TAP grant. What happened was I got the credit card. So I said, well, I got $300 credit card. I never had a credit card before, so I go shopping. So I go to a store, say Sears, if you know who Sears is. They sell tools. So I'm in Sears. I'm telling you exactly what I did. I bought a pair of sneakers. They said, oh, you don't have to use that card. We have a card where we'll give you a free gift. You don't have to use that card. I said, okay. So I signed up. Now I got a Sears card. I got the sneakers and I got a free gift. I'm walking in the mall. Guess what? I see some Timberland boots. I go to the Timberland store. I said, okay, I like those. How much are those? Oh, those are $75. But no, $100. By the way, you can get 20% off if you apply for our card. So now I give them the American Express card. No, you don't need that card. So they ran my credit. Oh, you got good credit. Now that's the fourth card within 20 minutes I just told you. At the end of the day, which, well, I'm not going to say day, within like maybe 3 weeks, I had 15 credit cards. Wow. Because of one credit card, American Express. Because remember, American Express is not a credit card, it's a charge card. And that card is like the primary cards of all cards. Once you get American Express card, you can buy a boat on it, you can buy a house on it, you can buy anything on American because there's no credit limit. But you have to have the means to pay it back. This is where the crunch happens. So I didn't know that you got to pay these credit cards with all this high interest. So I'm paying, $10 a month, $10 a month, $10 a month. And I noticed that the bill keep going up. It's not going down. And I'm like, well, why is the bill not going up? Well, you're only just paying the principal. You're not paying the interest on it. You're paying the interest, not the principal. So that's when I got into the deep trouble with the credit cards. And it's so easy to get into that when you're in college because it's like college gives you a freebie. And once you get that first credit card, you don't have to use that credit card. You can go to all the malls and they'll give you all the credit in the world. And the other key factor is when I went to go get the Jeep. I went down to a Crabtree in New Rochelle, the Jeep dealership. Again, show them the credit card. Oh, you don't need that. You have a job. You have a pay stub. Gave them that. They gave me a Jeep right off the lot. That's when my grandmother pulled me over the highway and said, what are you doing that Jeep? And she took it back to the dealership. Yeah. And it's a funny, it's a true story. I'm driving a brand new Jeep and I'm like, 21 years old. And the people at the church said, I seen your grandson, he's driving a new Jeep. My grandson don't drive. They said, no, I seen him, Miss Betty. I seen him, Miss Jessica. He was driving a Jeep. And they pulled me over on Riverdale Avenue. And she said, what are you doing in that Jeep? And she said, pull over. I pulled over. She took them keys and them people came and got that Jeep. I will show you photos at a later date. but just to tell a story, but the moral story is that how you can get yourself caught with all those credit cards so quickly because of one charge card.
That's the brilliance of having wisdom, having lived through those periods where it was so easily obtainable to get, like you said, those scenarios were spot on. They were spot on. You had your colleges, you had your new enlistees in the military, you had your just starting out after you left high school and just weren't really quite sure. You went to your local bank, and then maybe if there was a good connection there at the local bank, the manager hooked you up because they knew your mother, or knew your father, or they knew some form of someone who could, again, connect you to that opportunity of having access to credit. And that's was great and also scary at the same time because they weren't educating people. They should have sat you down. They should have told you what interest rates are. They should have sat you down. They should have told you, okay, these are the conditions of this contractual understanding. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, this is going to come back to haunt you. Don't pay the minimum. Pay more than the minimum. Bring your utilization down. Again, going over those important pieces, because when we got credit back when Jeff was talking about those scenarios, they would give you these. It was about a book about this size, and it was really tiny, and it had these little onion skin slivered pages that, the print was so small, but it was, again, about 60, 70, 80 pages, and they actually wanted you to sit there and read that. Even today with the contractuals that they always put or attach to your online applications, people don't read those. They don't, because it's too much garbage in there. You just want to know, what is my interest rate? And am I going to be able to make these payments? You should know that already prior to, but the contract more or less states that you are under certain obligations. And as long as you are meeting those obligations, you should always see your credit going in an upwards trajectory. And that's the part that we're attempting to, well, that I will be attempting to, not only in this show, but throughout the rest of my life, make sure that people understand. You got
Mr. Glover.
No, wait. I have one question to follow behind Mr. J. So my question is, right now, he just got finished explaining, okay, how quickly it is for you to accumulate all of this credit, but then they want you to have a credit file, meaning if you don't have 5 things that is lifting your credit, it's an issue. Now they're calling it a weak credit file. And it's like now I'm at a confusion, because just like you just got finished saying, Mr. J, you had to get one card to get to the next, to get to the next, to get to the next. Meanwhile, you still have to get the one card to get to the next, to get to the next, to get to the next, to get to the bigger prize.
Well, my thing is, I'm hard-headed. You see this? I'm back at it again. But the thing, but see now, here's the difference though. The difference is, I have a primary job that can pay for this stuff.
Of course.
That's the difference. But however, I've learned through Tyrone and other methods. When I use the card, I use one card. Don't never close these cards. Just pay them off. They're all paid off. I don't use these cards. They're all paid off. I only use one card.
Let me
because what happens is, if I close these cards, it's going to really destroy my credit. Is that true, Mr.
And that's my question. That is my question. How is it they want you to accumulate all of this credit by having 5 of those things open when you don't even have the knowledge to use one?
Okay.
Because one will destroy, just like you said. I'm sorry, not destroy. That's another wrong word. One will literally
destroy you.
Yes, pretty much destroy your whole lifestyle. Instead of you having 5 cards, and you need those 5 cards to accumulate the credit that you have. So this is where I'm like, I'm kind of confused on that, because it shouldn't take 5 cards to accumulate something that should be only having 1 card.
I'm gonna help you out. Now, Jeff, again, you put up that big stack, that monster. So if you have something on that level of 15 cards, you should have a household that is sufficient enough to accommodate that level of credit cards. As a single person, if you're making upwards of $250,000, $300,000 a year, yes, you can have 15 credit cards. You can have as many as you want to, but your income should be more than enough to pay for those cards should you max them out, because on a 30-day basis, you have to bring down that utilization. So your most important part about your credit is obviously, 1, paying your payment on time, which is 45% of your overall credit rating, and then making sure you bring down that utilization. Another thing that was never explained to us was, if I max it out, why would you only want to pay the minimum? So think about this in a relationship concept. If you are living and loving someone, and you came in and you only gave them the minimum of your love, how long do you think that relationship's going to last?
Don't ask me that question.
If you came in and just gave your wife or your mate, your partner, just a peck on the cheek every day for 30 years, how long do you think your marriage would have probably last? It probably wouldn't make
30 years. 30 years, like you said. You said 30 years, right?
No, come on. You know me. You know better than that. No.
No, you're right. It won't last long. You're right. It won't last long.
And that's how we set ourselves up for failure. They don't tell us, you got to show me some more love. Paying it down to 0 is also equally a negative. It's not a positive, because it's not showing more love. But the whole point is that we have to just understand how we manage it better. And yes, you brought up a very important point. Why can't I just use one item to make up that whole credit file, that whole process. That why do I need to have 5? Why do I need to have 8? Why do I need to have 10? Well, it's called a credit mix. And as long as you have a ideal credit mix. Now, the majority of us don't have assets. And it's just, again, reality. African Americans do not own enough assets. So we got to get more strategic in that category as well while we're building our credit or reestablishing our credit, because that's going to free up that ability to now get access to assets. And you'll see your life change once you have a house or you have, again, a owned car that you can use as collateral, or a boat, or whatever it is that creates assets, or you're having more investment assets. That's, again, another whole topic. Once you start doing that, you'll see your credit situation even flourish and thrive even more. It gives you more access to borrowing. It gives you more access to. So you have to have a nice mixture. And the majority of us African Americans, we use what? Credit cards. So if that credit card mix that we're using is, think of it again like grades in school. If I got 100 in PE, but I got 32, and I'm using my grades from high school, but I got a 32 in statistics, my average is going to be somewhere in the 50s.
And that's what creates the FICO score.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So you have that balance of all of your credit cards, all of your credit obligations have to have a certain understanding. If they're in your auto category, then you want to have the highest auto score, then you have to make sure that you maintain that average of a high average. Same thing when it comes to your credit. You have to maintain, I tell everybody as a single person, you should have anywhere between 5 and 8 credit products. Now, products are different than credit cards, but if credit cards are the only credit products that you are going to have in that file or your portfolio or profile, then that's perfectly fine. Just as long as you're managing those exactly in the manner that you don't have one that has a utilization of 88, you don't have one that has a utilization of 20, you don't have one that's a utilization of 50, that doesn't work. You have to look at it.
But Glover, let me ask you, right, I want to ask you, so in my situation, I don't use the cards. So don't close them, right? Is there a penalty for closing them? Because I don't use them.
Yeah.
There is a penalty for closing, and the only penalty for closing is that you don't get it reported. That's it. As long as you pay them back what you borrowed, there's no penalty. It's not like your loans that are, say, your mortgage. You might get hit with an early penalty for closing your loan prior to the 30 years. You might get hit on a car note loan for paying it prior to the actual 6 years, 5 years, or whatever the term or conditions. So you could see yourself getting hit with some form of penalties, but they pretty much did away with that because interest rates are pretty much super low. So they're not going to penalize you for borrowing their money. They want
I'm sorry, Mr. Glover. I just have remembered something. So basically what just happened is, you know how you have your boost on Experian, right? Because they have this thing called a boost on there. You can put Hulu as a bill. You can put Netflix as a bill. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. But
I'm sorry, Kia. I got to cut you off. Gimmicks. Don't get bought into the gimmicks, please. Don't. If it's getting boosted on Experian, what happens to TransUnion and Equifax?
Right.
So it's really not. So it's in my opinion, it's a bit disingenuous from Experian to say that, well, we're the biggest and the baddest and the best and whatever. We're going to help individuals boost their score. But what if your lender uses TransUnion?
That's exactly what happened. Yeah, that's exactly what, and not for nothing. I feel like some of them can pretty much use whatever credit score that they kind of, whatever is in their reach, whatever is in their corporation. You know, if they ask you, we want TransUnion, then they're going to go find TransUnion. They ask you for Experian, that's what they're going to look at. And they're going to want your average score from off of just that alone. They're not going to look at some of the other stuff, but they're going to look at that one.
28 credit scores is what you have. 28 different credit scores. So to sit there and try to figure out which one they're going to use is kind of mindless of us to think that we're going to be able to figure it out. Why don't we just focus on the data? Because the data makes up the score. If you took a test and the person, all 4 of us took a test and I got 100 because I'm the smartest guy here. I'm a jokester. Please don't take it.
He ain't
And
joking.
everybody-
How dare you? That was a joke.
Nah, he ain't joking. Who runs the tech department? Who runs the tech department? Tell him.
Kia got a 90, Liddy got an 85, and Jeff got a 60. But Jeff,
Oh Lord.
4 of Jeff's questions, or excuse me, 3 of Jeff's questions were right, but the teacher just marked them wrong. But if Jeff didn't challenge that after he looked at our test, how would Jeff ever know that?
Got it.
So it's really important to make sure that you're, hey, Lenny, hey, Kia, what'd you guys get? And going over your information, because that's all it is. It's information. Information is free. I do these shows, a lot of what my show is always about is about educating people first, because it's information free. And I tell people, go back and verify it. Look it up. I'm almost not 100, because you never want to be 100%, but 98.99%. My information that I give out to people about credit is worthy. I'm not even, if somebody were to ever come back and tell me, oh, what you told me, I would be like, yes, what I told you, what? Oh, well, thank you. As I thought, it was good. It was valid. Okay, perfect. I want anybody to always challenge. We go and get second opinions about our health. Credit is health. Go get a second and a third and a fourth if that makes you satisfied, but stop sitting around doing absolutely nothing. This is what's bothering me about our community. We're doing nothing. We think that one day we're gonna wake up and it's gonna be automatically 8:50, and I'm gonna be able to walk outside and get whatever I want. That's not gonna happen. We got roughly about 3 years. 3 years. This is just my prediction. I'm someone who's been in this industry in the retail, fast foods, amusement, travel industry for about 30 years. And I devoted about 15 of that 30 just to finance and understanding the credit aspect of what holds us back. And we're just not doing our part. But when we do our part, as I stated, 10% of our misfortune when it comes to credit is literally due to our own self-sabotage, because we're not paying it down in the manner in which we should. We extend our credit limits too far. We go out and get a $25,000 credit card or a $10,000 credit card. For what? You're making $12,000 or $15,000 or $18,000 or $20,000, or hell, you're making $90,000. At that interest rate on a $25,000 card and a $10,000 card, the 15, and then you get a car and then another car. Before you know it, you're over leveraged. And then we didn't do what we should have been able to do, what we should have learned. Credit goes to specific tasks.
Right.
When
Now,
you get
Sigma
your
Lenny, I want to ask you a question. Now, this is some facts to that, and I'm trying to get understanding too. Like, Tyrone, we're in New York. When you go to Minnesota or down Lenny in Baltimore or in the South, for some reason, when you try to go finance for a car, they don't dig deep into credit. They just want to know, do you work or have a job? Why is it different in New York where they're going by credit scores, and down there, they're just going by if you just have a job?
I
Here.
can attest to that. So basically in the DMV area, they do go by your credit. The thing is that you can benefit from certain dealerships out here who do something as they call it in-house financing, or you can have no credit check place, right? So we do have places out here that are like that. And you know, I know you guys heard of it, Eastern Motors, your job's your credit, right? So we got Eastern Motors out here, and they basically go by your job. The thing is that your credit is still impacted because they have to do what is called an inquiry, right? Inquiry, and that inquiry it can be as much as 2-3 points, depending on how many financial institutions they actually send your portfolio to. And then those financial institutions, they send back, oh, yay or nay. Oh, yeah, we'll go with him, and then obviously the dealership get their cut, and then, the salesman, they get a cut. But they do have that. So they do go by your credit out here. It's just that there are other means of, besides going through just solely based on your credit. So
if you're borrowing, they're going to run that credit. If you're borrowing, that's the bottom line. Borrowing is the most important part about whether you borrow a pencil from your colleague or your student. I mean, a kid at work at school. If he were to say to you, and I give a lot of magnetic pencils, well, I want two of those leads tomorrow to be able to replace. Again, that's the interest. So Kia, you said it. If we teach our kids early, with something basic like that, they'll grow up with a lot more. But they do have those situations. But your credit, if you are borrowing, bottom line, they're going to run that credit because they need to know whether or not you are financially fit to meet that obligation. You could have a job and your job could be paying you $200 a week, but you're trying to get something that's going to be asking you to pay them $400 a week. It ain't gonna happen. There's no mathematical understanding how that could possibly come out properly. And again, when you're looking at those types of using your job as your credit, you're looking at vehicles that might not meet the understanding. And that's another thing that's kind of scary too. They're going to put you into a lemon. Thank God that there are lemon laws now that prevent that from happening. But again, you buy a car from a dealership that is not so reputable and they're doing it based off of your credit or your income. Now you end up 2 weeks down the road and you're stuck on the road because of some lemon that somebody sold you. And now you lose your job over what?
Right.
No, let's do it the right way versus doing it the convenient way.
I agree.
I will add on to that as well. So in the DMV area,
We can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry. I will add on to that as well. In the DMV area, as far as Virginia, so Maryland has lemon laws. Virginia actually doesn't, right? So when you buy a vehicle out there, you basically take it as your own risk, right? So it's like buyer beware, and they actually have clauses. So when you go and buy a car there in the Virginia area, they actually have in the clause, buyer beware form, Now, granted, the dealership can offer you, some sort of warranty, maybe like a 30-day or 90-day. But let's face it, a lot of these cars aren't, they're basically not up, in tip-top shape. And as soon as you drive off the lot, you're having issues. You got to go and replace, you got to get some sort of tune-up or, some hard engine work. And that's another thing, too, for the audience. When you go and buy a car, make sure you look at the warranty very closely because there are certain things that aren't covered in the warranty. So they'll say, okay, this doesn't cover suspension work. This doesn't cover engine work, right? So if something happens to your vehicle, you're basically, you're going to be totally liable. So that's what I kind of, want to say to that. But there was one more point I wanted to actually make with you guys too. So Mr. Tyrone, you and Kia mentioned something earlier, which is called FICO score. So I just wanted to kind of read to the audience what a FICO score basically is. So Fair Isaac Corporation is the FICO score. It's the largest and best known of several companies that provide software for calculating a person's credit score. So mind you, these are private companies, which was what I wanted to lead as far as a question to Mr. Tyrone. A lot of people are not aware that they can challenge their credit report because these are simply private companies. Isn't that correct, Mr. Tyrone?
That is correct. Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian are all for-profit companies. Equifax in 2020 made $4.128 billion in revenue. Billion. Experian made its revenue was $5.372 billion. TransUnion made it's not giving me their overall dollar value, but their stock price is $86.12. So trust me when I tell you, they're equally in the billions of dollars. So when you have companies that are more or less controlling the flow of our credit information, and they're making billions of dollars, guess what they're going to be doing? They're going to be protecting themselves. They're not going to be caring too much about whether or not, Jeff, you have an 850. They're not going to care whether or not, Kia, you have an 850. They're not going to care about whether Tyrone, the credit expert guru person, has an 850. They're not going to care if Lenny has an 850. They're going to protect their industry. And it's, again, as a business person myself, and I have to weigh also both sides. I have to play devil's advocate a lot in my life. I'm cool with that understanding of business, but it should be done on a manner where it's not hurting, again, 70% of the population. That is something that should be alarming to all of us. When you can single out 70% of the population and say, even if you, again, pay 1% or 2%, you're going to make out like a fat cat. But you're charging these individuals upwards of, and it used to be, Jeff, you can attest to that, interest rates used to be as high as 34.99%. And
Right.
Congress did, under, again, certain laws, they brought those interest rates down to 24. But 24 is still a hell of a lot of money when you know that institutions are borrowing money at the lowest interest rates to date, but yet you can turn around and Samuel L. Jackson and the little guy, Kevin Hart, could be asking you what's in your wallet. We know what's in our wallet, these high overpriced cards, and you want to try to gimmick us with Experian Boost or 2% back or this percent back. No, if you can do that, then you can lower them to reasonable, and also so that your business can still maintain. Then you can offer it at that lower price, but it's a business decision. For those who can't, let's charge them as much as we possibly can, because we're going to wait for them to default, and then we're going to hit them with a default charge. For those who can, we're going to give them the lowest possible interest rates, allowing for them to be able to have much more access to assets and things of that nature. And for those in the middle, fend for your own, fend for yourself. If you get the information, great. If you don't, oh well. Tough luck. We're still going to make our money. But yes, these are for-profit entities, for-profit. And I personally, again, do not agree that these entities that make money, that their own function is to make money. It's not to protect your information. It's to make money. That's it. And they're living off of contractual obligations that they have to consumers, and they live off contractual obligations that they have to the lenders of that information, because they're not getting our information from us. They're getting it from our partnerships with lenders and borrowers. And again, you may or may not know that this information doesn't have to be provided to them. They're getting it voluntarily, but yet they're profiting in the billions. And the majority of this information that they're getting, I'm not going to say it's all incorrect, but you should ask yourself, when I look at my credit report and I see if I do something negative, I'm getting hit with these massive amounts of decreases. But if I do something positive, it's only going up like this much. Why? Why is that? Why? There's got to be something tied to that major discrepancy when it comes to positive and negative, because I know math, and math is pretty simple. If I start at 0 and I go 2 spaces this way, guess what? I'm going to be at 2. But if I start at 0 and I do something negative and it only brings me down, it's still going to be 2. It's not going to weigh differently depending on the severity of the incident. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens in credit. Your negatives weigh in the hundreds, if I'm not mistaken, because I had one where, again, not my fault. And a lot of us always, when you go to prison, no criminals in prison are criminals. Stop. Yes, some things are not our fault. And we're finding that out in our judicial process as well. There's a lot of criminals in prison that, again, through now DNA, have shown that, no, they weren't supposed to be there. Weren't supposed to be in the same situations with our credit. Had we known certain things, we definitely would not have made those mistakes. And some of these utility obligations that we get ourselves into as well. That's another thing that you really got to be careful with, because a cable incident for myself, moved out of the apartment, moved into a whole new apartment 2 months later after I'm trying to send these people their stuff back. I was supposed to be waiting on the box. Again, I'm not doing your work. You want to send me a box so I can put your stuff in that box with your labels? Why should I go and travel around trying to drop it off? No, again, we're making their part of their obligation too much convenient for themselves. So I waited on the box. They tried to tell me, oh, there was service that was rendered at the apartment that I wasn't even in for 2 months. So they're wanting $400 and something. And I'm like, look at my bill talking about, I don't owe you $400, I owe you $200. But does Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian care about that? Nope. They're going to take the word of that business. They're going to put that $498 on your credit report. And you're going to be stuck with having to fight back and forth between how you get that item taken care of and removed off your credit report. But again, when you have individuals like myself who are notorious, we get what we get. We get what we want, because when you know and understand how this all works, it makes it so easy to orchestrate a nice, beautifully well-written letter, drop it on somebody's desk, drop it on somebody's, and again, important to understand. If I'm mailing something to the company, it's going to hit an individual. If I'm mailing something to Equifax, TransUnion, or Experian, it's going to hit what Lenny brought up, which was the programs that are being used to scan and determine how your responses to any type of concern are now being addressed. And that's it's just we're dealing with automated processes thinking we're talking to humans. No. If you're dealing with an automated process, it's going to be scanned in, that code or that algorithm is going to read that letter in the manner in which that business has set it up. He said FICO was the largest, and they sell their system to Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, and they basically tell them, no, you can just use it however you see fit. No, we don't have no constraints to how you use it, but not telling us, the consumer, you equally are under a contractual understanding, and we have to protect you as well. So this is where the conflict therein lies. They say here, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, you can do whatever you want, but on the other hand, Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, got to be careful, because the consumers themselves still have rights. So that's the battle that we're dealing with. And this is where I keep telling everybody, that's why you have to, every month, whether you do it once a month, whether you do it twice a month, start taking serious or putting serious attention towards your credit. Serious. Do not take this as a joke. It's dead serious. Now,
Mr. Glover, I did some research. This is a paper I've got down. I looked at my notes. This is a true fact, and I'm going to read this just very short. I'm going to read this to you. Does being Black affect your credit score? Now listen to this. Numerous studies have found racial disparities in credit scoring. 1996, there was a study found African Americans were 3 times as likely to have a FICO score below 620, which is true, as whites, and that Hispanics were twice as likely. 2010 study found that African Americans in certain zip codes had credit scores less than 620. Now check this out. It also states that what race has the best credit score? Asians. What is the average credit score by race? The Asian population has the highest average FICO score of 745. Conversely, the black population has the lowest average score at 677. You know why that's true to that? Because that was my credit score, always stayed at 677. It won't even move up 678 or 675. It stays at 677. That's a fact.
For me, because I'm right there as we speaking right now. I am stuck on that number as we speak. Remind you.
Is that crazy?
Yeah. It's clear as day. Ain't nothing on it.
This was strategically designed to do exactly what you, again, we're not pulling this out of our wahoo. We're seeing it from their own information. So how is it that you can put these, and this was 2010. We're now living in 2022. And you mean to tell me that y'all have not been able to figure out how the numbers of certain things never go beyond a certain amount? No, it's designed that way. The systems that were put in place. Why does my zip code have anything to do with my personal credit? It should have nothing to do with my personal credit. My behavior of how I used my credit should be the only factors. And there are multiple factors tied into the 5 factors. The 5 factors that we should all be looking at when it comes to our credit. Am I paying on time? 35%. Am I bringing down my utilization? 30%. Do I have a good mixture? 10%. How's my credit history? 15%. And am I inquiring too much, looking desperate? 10%. That right there, those 5 factors should add up to 100%, which it does. And as long as I can meet those major 2, that's 65% of my overall credit score. Nothing else should be weighed upon that. If you're not going to even take my income into consideration, then how can you take other factors into consideration?
Right.
It's been built broken. It was built to exclude. And that's
Like
where
like Mr. Glover, me and my dad was having a conversation like literally a couple of weeks ago, right? And I was asking him, and I'm telling him my credit score, right? I'm letting him know what it is and everything else. And I said, they keep telling me it's these hard inquiries. So I'm not understanding. So basically, you're trying to tell me looking for a car, something simple is looking for a car, not succeeding to get the car because my credit score is too low. You're telling me now I have to deal with the fact that this is going to be on my credit score for 2 years and it's damaging it.
And that's another one of these. It doesn't add up. We got a great hashtag out there, and it's make it make sense. So if you guys could start sharing that hashtag for me, make it make sense, because that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make any sense that you're telling me if I'm looking for credit, I'm doing more damage to my credit.
Right.
How does that add up? How does it make it again? But that was also, again, designed specifically for the dealerships. And this is
not for dealerships. This is for mortgage. This is for phone companies. This is for.
I'm going to help you out just on clarifying. Phone companies aren't as bad. Mortgages, that ties into a whole different category, because mortgages, you're dealing with something upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on your geological location. But the primary suspect when it comes to running that credit numerously is the auto dealerships. You'll look at an auto, you will never see 3 and 4 inquiries for a credit card. Never. Ever. You'll see 1 inquiry and that's it. But the habitual abusers are primarily your auto dealers, where they're shopping around. They know when you walk in that door. Once they do that 1 credit check, they know where you're pretty much situated. They don't have to run your credit over and over and over and over and over and over. Sometimes up to, myself personally, had 9 credit inquiries for 1 car, even though I was over 700. You're running my credit 9 times for what? Took my 700, over 700, brought it down to like 6, I think it was like 630. And I ended up turning around giving them $12,000 as a down payment, because I didn't put that down there. I was doing everything that I was taught that was going to be the right thing towards. Still ended up with a 400 and something payment a month on a over 700. I'm thinking to myself, what did I do wrong? Because I just knew I was going to be somewhere in that 250 range. My insurance was going to be almost nothing. But I still, even with a high credit score, allowing for a car dealership to do what it did by bringing that score down and then getting hit with what they wanted me more or less to have, hoping, again, that I would default. Now, my interest rate was, I think it was like 12%, but it could have been much higher. But 12% still was too high for somebody who had over a 700 credit score. So really important to know your information prior to, because when you walk into a car dealership, you know what it should be? 30 minutes. Why do I know that? My sister, who I helped out as well, told me all of the things that she wanted in this car, and told me all of the what she had looked at it. She wanted this champagne color one with the brown leather and so forth. And so I'm like, cool, great, fantastic. She worked at it for 6 months, got her credit right where she needed to do. Walked in there, said, I got 30 minutes. 32 minutes, car washed, signed, out of there. 32 minutes, car wash, signed. Now, they try to keep you in there for 4 and 5 hours, offering you the popcorn, offering you the coffee. Oh, can we get you something else? You can't really get me nothing else, because all you got in here is popcorn and coffee and water. So, what, you going to order me a lobster dinner or something?
Just like you said, the gimmicks.
Exactly. Don't get involved into all of the sideshow. Know what you want going into the whole understanding and be okay with, hey, you can't meet me where I am. Be okay with saying no and getting up and walking away. We settle. We came here in 1492, settling, and we're still settling in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop that.
Mr. Glover, I just want to say something real quick. Just a little funny
I'll say this
story.
real quick because I want to close that. I want to say this to the audience. When you're applying for a vehicle, the smartest thing you can do, if you have to finance, go with your own bank. Get your own bank, cashier's check, and you go to the dealership. Because what happens ultimately is they're going to run your credit to the ground by sending it to all of these financial institutions, which send out inquiries, and it's knocking your score down, which is going to ultimately put you in a place where you're going to have to work a little bit hard to get it back up. But I just want to say that, guys.
No, that is absolutely exactly in the manner in which I would also let someone know. But you don't necessarily have to go to your bank. What if you had a horrible relationship with your bank? You want to find a willing partner who's going to work with you. And when you start meeting those terms of the contractual obligation, because a willing partner should also understand, if I have a car loan for 4 years, 5 years, whatever the term of those loans, something within that 4 to 5 years could happen. We're not saying we want it to happen, but there are these things called accidents. There are these things called mishaps. And that willing partner should equally understand, hey, you know what? I'm not going to take a loss. I'm not going to take a hit, but I'm going to work with this consumer because I'm looking at creating that type of a relationship. And that's what we want overall, more than you giving me a loan. But say 6 months into the loan, I get injured and now I'm not working and now I can't make my payment. And now all of a sudden you are acting as if you never knew nothing about me. And now you want to hit me with all these fees and all these charges. And like I say, I play devil's advocate. I get it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. You can reorchestrate loans. You can you can put payments toward the rear. You can do so many things that prevent the cost of this loan going up for the consumer. But as I stated in business, it's all about that bottom line. But overall, the conversation should be the state of your credit. What are you doing, you personally? What are you doing to make sure that you are going to be able not to just manage through this crisis? Because again, these crises are not going to stop. This is our second pandemic in 200 years, but still, you think it's going to stop? It's going to be more. Do you think we're going to end up with more Trump-esque type of individuals leading this country? I believe that is something that will probably happen again and again, hopefully not in my lifetime, because I don't want to have to go through another one of these senseless leaders who don't quite get the foundation of what this country was built on. It was built on prosperity for all, even though it took us some time to get there. We're still fighting through some of these Jim Crow type of situations. But with all the knowledge that we have, with all the expertise and the skills that we have, I'm not out there trying to be a financial advisor. I'm not. I'm out there being a credit expert. That's it. I can't tell you about your financial situations because I didn't study that. That's not my primary field of study or field of interest. My primary field of interest was I studied logistics in the military about moving materials and moving products and goods and service from one place to the next place, finding out how products from raw material become into sneakers and lanyards and headphones and speakers and glasses and all, just going through how do we even get products, and now talking about credit. And it's just the evolution of who we are should equally meet our understanding of how we manage and navigate through this financial situation. So it's been fun. It's going to continue to be fun. And these types of shows allow for us as individuals to speak open and clear about our experiences. And hopefully as we do that, we'll start putting all of that to work, because it means absolutely nothing if you talk about it, but you don't apply it.
I agree.
Nothing. It means nothing. Kids look at me. Why do I have to take notes? But dang, you're going to get home and you're not going to remember what you did in school. So, I mean, come on, you're going to have a test in about 2 to 3 weeks, and you're going to try to recall that from that small little pea brain that you have, but you haven't learned how to navigate how that brain works. We're still, most of us, I can guarantee you, how many of you use your non-dominant hand?
Yeah.
See, I get that response all the time. Both of my hands. My mouse is in my left hand. The mouse is one of those most dominant things that you use on your computer. So I put it in my left hand so that I'm strengthening the right side of my body. Your left side of your body controls your right side, and your right side of your right side controls your left side. Kind of weird in that sense, but we're not even using the basics of how we use our hands to work muscles. So it's
I never thought about it like that. That's very, very interesting. I've never thought about it like that.
yeah.
It's Super Lenny. I just want to tell the audience too. There's another thing I want to add to that. I tell people this all the time. Whenever you get behind in your car note, your mortgage, any kind of payments like that, do not, and I'm telling them, do not pawn jewelry, do not pawn wedding rings, do not seek other loans. Have a relationship with the banks, because they have, financial institutions have programs where it's called hardship, meaning that if you get behind on a loan, what they do is they, instead of say if your loan ends 2022 in March, they'll push it back a couple of months. So they'll save you 2 payments without no penalty. That goes for cars, that goes for mortgages, any other kind of loans. Because I see that's where most of the problem comes with the bad credit. Because when we get behind in the payments, we don't make a call and have a relationship with the banks and the institutions to let them know what our financial situation is. And also, I want to ask you and Lenny, Tyrone, the issue that I had with Wells Fargo. I was in the class action suit because if I have a $500 car payment a month, right? Why is out of the $500, $410 going to interest and $90 going to principal? Is that legal or? Yeah, that's a serious question. And I want to even ask the audience, if you have an experience like that, please email you and let you know, what the circumstances is behind that.
Well,
I'm sorry. I'll one second, Mr. Tyrone. Audience, I will put Mr. Tyrone's information in a link below, so you guys can contact him and you can go find him if you have any kind of credit questions or questionnaires that you may have for him. It will be in the description below. Sorry about that, Mr. Tyrone.
No, that your auto loan, that seems just really odd that you would have a auto loan, but as you said, this has moved now past your financial obligation with Wells Fargo into now a class action where there were more parties that had these kind of suspicious contractual arrangements with Wells Fargo's auto. So I don't know all of the circumstances behind that, but anytime you're in a class action lawsuit, participate. It's free money, not necessarily free money per se, but it is a way of them not copying to their indiscretions, because they never agree. They always say we don't find any fault, but they're paying these huge fines. I never really understood that, but again, as a business person, I do understand it. So it's in that particular scenario, I wouldn't be able to give you much information on that as far as the Wells Fargo's lawsuit. And then the other one was, what was the other one? The first one?
The other one was, is it legal for a financial institution, if you have a $500 payment, $460 is going toward interest and $40 is going to principal?
Well,
I don't know how that adds up.
That was the one I just answered. That one, it's not that it's legal or not legal. If you're not looking at your contract, it's a contractual understanding. The contract's going to be written. If you sign it without reading it, anything's legal. Anything's legal. If you sign that, put your name to it, and you didn't read it and didn't understand it fully, that's legal. But you had posed something previously to that first question that I really wanted to answer, and I can't remember how the question went.
Well, it was a bait and switch. It was called bait and switch.
like when you sign the contract, when they're telling you and you signing paperwork, that's why I said be careful to the audience. Be careful when you get car loans and mortgages, because you have to watch how they overlay the paperwork. Because sometimes you'll sign the paperwork with your signature, but there's another paper under that, which your signature, and they play those games. It's the bait and switch, what they do. And then you find out later on that you signed a contract that you wasn't aware that you signed, that information.
Just going to clarify on that bait and switch term. Bait and switch is more an advertising term than it is a contractual term. So say, for instance, if you saw on an ad, they said Samsung TVs, $299, but you get down to the store and they don't have any more of those Samsung TVs. So they've baited you into coming down there, and then all of a sudden you're switching up on what they're now offering. They're going to offer you RCA, but it's not $249, it's $299. So for that $50 more, you'd probably go and say, hey, you know what, I'm already here, let me go ahead. But you would really want it to have that Samsung TV for $249. So that bait and switch can be used in multiple scenarios, but I wanted to kind of just clarify what it was really meant for. It was advertisement that was baiting you into seeing one thing and then switching it up when you got there. Now, what you were referring to as far as that contract, you, again, look through all of those sheets of papers, the carbon copies back in our days. They don't have that now. They actually, you have to sign whatever copies you sign, their copy, you sign your copy, and you sign the copies that go into the lawyer. So you're actually signing 3 different copies, and those copies should all look the same. So it's super important, of course, absolutely. Always read through not necessarily read through, always validate the information that you yourself are signing prior to. And if you don't agree with something, hit the brakes, even in the middle of something. You should have trusted individuals that you can reach out to. I have individuals who will call me, hey, I'm getting ready to get this credit card. What do you think about this interest rate? What do you think about that? I'll look at their credit really quick and say, okay, good, you're good to go. Or prior to anything like that, hey, you know what? I'm thinking about X, Y, and Z. They'll call me and I'll give them that. There is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. A coach at a baseball game, and think of it in this type of scenario. You're in a game. You're always in some form of a competitive type of understanding, trying to get the best of. So your coach is going to literally tell you when you're up at that plate, when you get ready to take that shot, when you're kicking that ball, they're going to tell you what you're doing prior to, or what you should do as you are. Coaches are yelling instructions from the field. They're giving their players instruction. There's nothing wrong with having a coach in your financial understanding where you can pick up that phone and say, I'm getting ready to do X, Y, and Z. What do you think? And if you haven't done your due diligence, Kia, you can come right in. If you haven't done your due diligence, then guess what? That coach should be someone to tell you, no, I don't think that's a smart move.
Well, audience, I do have maybe a solution to some of the problems that are going on as far as credit score is concerned. I had purchased, because I was trying to figure out what would be the right thing for me to do as far as building my credit score. And I found a perfect solution for me. And I have put so many other people on to this one solution here in Minnesota, and it is working out for them. It's working out for me. And I mean, it's been nothing but beautiful ever since I started. There is this app, and there is this financial institution called Self. Okay. Self is a 3-in-1. It gives you, first of all, it helps you save money. It's a credit builder. And also it's a secure card. Okay. So what happens is with this Self, I will put the logo is right here. Self, audience, just in case you want to see it. Only because they've been nothing but good. Okay. And it helped me. My credit score went up with them alone, 106 points. Yes. 106 points.
Oh, you have one as well, Tyrone?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And me and Mr. Glover we didn't even inform each other about it. So
yeah, you got one as well?
No. Mr. J don't have it. Mr. J doesn't have it.
No,
But
that's AAA.
but even just still, audience, like that self credit builder, it is exactly what you need as far as low credit. Okay, it'll start you off from the lowest of lows. It'll start you off from something as simple as $25 every month. Okay, and then what happens after you pay your first three payments of $25? You get the card that me and Mr. Glover just explained to you. You'll get one of these, and you'll get a credit limit. Your credit limit will be about $300 at first, and then it will just every month that you pay, just like he said, you have to pay on time. You have to make sure that it's paid on time. You have to make sure that that nothing is late. So once you're paying these things off every single month, basically what it does is basically what they do is it's basically a loan. Okay, a loan for about $500 if you're doing the minimum of $25. Okay, so they'll take out a CD for $500 for you. And once you get to that limit of paying the $500 off, you have one or two choices. You can either receive your $500 paycheck back in full, and I mean receive it all. That is your $500 that you spent of getting that built up, and you will receive that back. Or you can turn it into a secure card. And then once you turn it into a secure card, that $500 can now be $600. Okay. Once you're paying on it every month and on time, okay, basically it turns it from $600 to $675 because now they're allowing you for your credit limit to go up. That $675, you keep paying it, it turns into what, $725, $750. So
just really quick, Kia, I just want to, you're doing a fabulous job with giving them their props, but also equally just make sure that you're monitoring how they report. Okay, so even though and I myself, this is not a low end product. This is a product for individuals. I'm not in that low end category. I'm just someone who focuses all of my attention in the credit realm. And if there's something out there that's going to be a winner, why not? I used to promote the green dot one until I found out that green dot is garbage.
Yeah, I have.
No, listen, different stroke for different folks. Terrible. If it works for you, it works, and if it doesn't work, then hey, it doesn't work. But I would just give it a shot. And like I said, you will absolutely get your money back in return. There is no such thing as you're not getting it back.
The only thing that I had with self was, as I stated, the reporting. For being in that program for a whole year, you would have thought, following again the principles of credit, paying on time, making sure that you bring down that utilization, waiting the time frame between using that card until when it gets reported, because that's where the biggest issue is. They can have a multitude of credit products out there, but if they're not following their basic rule of reporting,
I agree,
do everything right and still end up with the not desirable credit score. So all the products that are out there are designed to do one thing. Well, they're actually designed to do two things. Definitely designed to make money for that entity that's offering that product, and it's also designed to build or help reestablish credit. But the part that's not happening is that building or reestablishing. We'll see it go up 10 points. The credit boost, perfect example. 21 points. 21 points in 30 days, and you got 6 or 7 or 8 credit products. How? That don't make no sense. But you met every one of your obligations on those 6, 7, 8, whatever products. You met all your obligations, but it only goes up 21 points. But say if that one person on 6 obligations only missed one payment, paid that payment 1 day late, they'd watch that score tank on one credit product. That again, for me, it's the reporting that's doing the most harm. And I've looked through, but I've read a lot of the congressional reports going back for decades. And the congressional reports say the exact same thing. these entities literally do not care. When you're billion-dollar entities, and you are getting hit with millions of dollars in fines, billions clearly outweigh millions. So again, a little slap on the wrist. That's number one. That should not be taking place. They shouldn't be getting hit with these small little fines that they can just wipe off their books. And Congress should be doing a much better job with enforcing, telling them if you can't do X, Y, and Z, then you can't operate in this space. It's just that simple. If you're hurting, again, 70% of the population, why does Congress keep allowing them to keep getting away with the same egregious abuses? Why? Congress itself is benefiting. Now, Nancy Pelosi, if you guys have or have not been following, but Nancy Pelosi have orchestrated or now they're attempting to prevent Congress members from actually trading, which, again, hello, no brainer. Because if you're regulating them, how are you going to be able to regulate them if they're putting money in your pocket? If they're able to donate to you? How do you regulate a body that's donating to your campaign or giving you money or allowing for you to invest in that company? You're going to make sure that that company obviously is doing very, very well for itself, because if it's not, guess who's losing money? You are. So a lot of conflict of interest that must be addressed. But yes, Self is a great building product. There's another one out there called Extra. There's Chime. There's something called VARO. There's a lot of new ones out there. My thing is just be careful. If you are unsure, have someone in your back pocket that you can pick up that phone and say, hey, I got a quick question, 1 or 2 minutes. If you get someone like myself, I'm going to try to keep you on for probably 2 and 3 hours. No, I'm just kidding. But for the most part, really, really simple. Second opinion. Hey, second opinion. Hey, can I, what? If we're doing more of that, we'll never find ourselves in these predicaments that we were previously in. This is what we're attempting to do. Prevent that from reoccurring. We do not need to be having reoccurrences of these credit mishaps. We don't. We can solve our problems. We have talented, smart, bright, brilliant individuals already within our communities doing these things already. All we have to do now is just reach out. I believe you are you're a homemaker, right? You do home care goods or something in that related, right, Kia?
Yes, I'm a CNA, and I've been a CNA for 13 years now.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, and I believe you're doing something else home. Don't you do a fragrance or a bath thing?
No, actually, I do hair.
Right.
Yes, I represent Zethickia's Beauty. Look me up, guys. I'm on Facebook. And yes, there is
below, guys.
yes. But yes, basically, that's exactly what I'm in the realm of doing right now at the moment, and basically coming out with just own conditioners and just different things in that era right now. So yeah.
And your personal credit is going to be tied into how you further expand that business, whether or not you keep it within the house structure, or if you decide to branch off and put it into something of a brick and mortar mainstream, or if you go what a lot of people are, again, keeping it within house and now putting a lot of their products online, doing it in that fashion. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities. There's going to be a lot, I'd say it already, trillions of dollars are out there for individuals to gain access, credit-worthy individuals to gain access. Once we start getting our hands on that access by maintaining our credit in the manner in which it should, it's going to open up so many new avenues, so many new doorways that we previously thought were not going to be possible, but they're going to be more than possible. And it's all it is, your data. They look at your data. If they can take a credit application and evaluate that credit application in 30 seconds to give you a determination as to what they're going to give you, do you really think they're thinking about you? No, they're thinking about your data. What is your data saying to decision makers? Or let me rephrase that. What is your data saying to decision makers' algorithms? Because that's more or less what it is. It's a code. Somebody sat and wrote this code to fit to Target, to fit to Walmart, to fit to whatever decision that their banks were going to have four specifics as what Mr. Anderson brought up, or Jay brought up, where he said your zip code, your city, your last name. There's so many factors that weigh into these algorithms that, again, in my professional and personal opinion, they should not be using computers to make personal decisions about my credit worthiness. If that information has been compromised in every sense of the word, which we're talking about, that's exactly what's going on. You don't need me to tell you that. You can type in, Jeff pulled it up, Jay pulled it up himself. He already told you the average between Asians, whites, and blacks. There's a huge 60 to 80 point differential. Why? It's not because they're doing anything spectacular. No, it's because of how these algorithms were designed, how they were set up to impede and hurt individuals in certain communities. Now, not saying that Asians don't teach their kids more about finance, not saying that the schools and states primarily where Asians live, they probably have that as a curriculum. I was doing the 2020 financial education report that showed the letter grades of states. New York has a D letter grade, D. Now, I don't think I would want to send my kids to school striving to just be a D student. So if it's not an emphasis in your state, that trickles down, obviously, to not being an emphasis in your city, to not being an emphasis in your school board, to not being an emphasis in your household, to, again, where we are today. But if it is an emphasis in your state, then it becomes an emphasis in your city, then it becomes an emphasis in your community, then it becomes an emphasis in your neighborhood, then it becomes an emphasis in your household. Then you have a whole different understanding of how we're now dealing with our finances. And that's what we here on these types of shows want to break that stigma. We want to break that narrative. We are a resilient people. We are a smart people. We are a talented people. We dominate pretty much every athletic sport that is out there. I believe some comedian, because I don't want to steal anyone's information, but I believe one comedian said, once they make a heated hockey rink, we're going to dominate that too.
Glover, I want to ask you, this is to you, Lenny, Kia, Glover, and the audience. Here's another question, an opinion and a question at the same time. Why do car insurances companies check your credit? Here's the answer. And I want you to elaborate on that. Insurance companies check your credit score in order to gauge the risk they'll take to insure you. Studies have indicated that those with lower credit scores are likely to file more claims or have more expensive insurance claims, while those with higher credit scores are less likely to do so. And there's no truth to that, is it?
There's a lot of truth to that.
It's funny, guys. I'm gonna say this real quick, man. I'm glad you mentioned that, Jay, because this leads up to what I was getting ready to talk about as well. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It seems as if I'm going to say, quote unquote, modern day slavery. And the reason why I say that is because I feel strongly that companies do have the data. As you can see, we talked about, earlier that these are statistic companies, right? So they're pulling consumer data. They're doing, your behavioral consumer buying behaviors and things like that. So they have the data. Now, hear me out. Based on what you said earlier, Jay, with the zip codes. Yes, me and Mr. Ty, we talked about that previously. What I think is going on is that based on the zip code, they have data where they see which demographic has the most default rate. Because if think about it from a business perspective, if you're a lender, right? You're not going to give to somebody who can just go and pay cash and say, no, I'm just going to pay this whole thing off. You make no money. But if I give it to somebody who has a high default rate, right? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, even if he was to give it to, the company was to give it to a person with a lower default rate, they won't get any money. They won't. How you ensure that they get the money? Well, there's a lot of programs where that company can get their money back. They can either sell it to a collections company. A collection company will sell it. They'll be able to buy the debt for less than half, so they can go ahead and profit from it. But the company never loses, right? So I think what's happening is it's kind of like a modern day slavery thing. Like they're looking, in conjunction with what you're saying, Jay, as far as the insurance company, they're looking towards where can we get our bang for our buck. And if this person, has a lower credit score, and they, basically have statistically highest claims, the insurance company is going to win tremendously. But that's what I kind of wanted to say on that, as far as my input, guys.
Everything again is a risk, so they're going to weigh that risk. And you again, you brought up a very valid point with insurance. Insurance is they're insuring the possibilities of, if nothing happens, then guess what? They've made out. If something does happen, they're hoping that with all of the policies that they have, they're able to cover that cost. And as you so eloquently stated, yes, areas where they're poorer or where it's saturated with more of a certain race, they will weigh in over, like you said, the history, the course of having the data points that they have. It's a business decision, and they're looking at making money. So if I can make more money at charging individuals in a auto situation, where I'll tie it just to autos, because that's a very tricky one, because a lot of people will travel without car insurance because they know that if they do get into some type of scuffle, if it's not an auto accident, say for instance, if it's where you're driving without insurance, so they can impound your car, they can take your property, and then all you have to do is pay the whatever that is for that particular ticket, and then you get your vehicle back, which still probably could be significantly lower than the insurance. So insurance itself has to equally decide how profitable is that method that they're using. Is it really helping their business? And I'm sure they'll probably go back and say, well, over the course of, but just imagine if you could offer, which they have out there now. I'm sure you've probably seen it on some TV advertisements, or even if you do social media, where they have this one thing. If somebody's like, if you're scanning the barcode, your insurance now goes from $300, $400, $500 to like $34. Why couldn't they do that way back in the day? And that probably, again, has nothing to do with your credit. Because if they could offer it a group rate at 34, then that means somebody pretty much said, hey, you know what? We should have never been charging these enormous and astronomical rates to begin with.
Yeah. Mr. Glover, let me add this too. Now to talk about, just go to all three of you, to talk about that insurance thing. Now, this is from the government. It says, systematic racism in auto insurance exists and must be addressed by the lawmakers, right? Now listen to this. It says, African Americans are disproportionately represented in the higher premium categories, as a table 1 illustrates, which leads to higher prices for the exact same coverage, even before considering geographic price disparities. So when it says, when you enter the zip codes, they get, like, say for instance, we're in 10703. If we're black and we live in 10703, we're going to pay higher insurance as a white person living in the same zip code. That's what it says, right? It's from the federal government. It's called the CFA.
Yes, and this is the part, again, that really is, it shouldn't be alarming to anyone. We shouldn't be like, oh my God, we shouldn't be taken aback by this. No, this is something that's already been out there. Our job now is to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up for these further debilitating situations that keeps us from. You should be okay with walking away from a dealer who says, oh, we got 7% or 8% or 9%. You should be okay with saying, nah, that doesn't work for me. Because guess what? If you do that, guess what that dealer is going to be doing? The deal is already done. The dealer is trying to get a little bit more money. So if you walk away from that 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, after they haven't hit their quota, guess what they're going to be calling back?
Yep, I agree.
Calling you back, but they know that we're settlers. They know that even if we can't get this with the sunroof and the 18 inches, or the whatever frills and thrills that we want on our vehicle, we're going to settle for something a little bit less. And that something a little bit less is not even a percentage less than what they're offering. It's much less because again, if you've been shopping for vehicles, you know this, you know the game. You know that game. We sat at the dealership one time, we were in California. We lived in Simi Valley. Mitsubishi in Simi Valley, which was 5 minutes away from my home, would not sell me the car. But I had to go all the way almost 200 miles to a whole nother city to buy the same car that I could have bought right in my own neighborhood. Okay,
goes back to that zip code thing. Goes back to that zip code. It's the zip code.
But guess who brought that car to that neighborhood every single time it needed an oil inspection and a checkup and a tune-up and everything? Bought it right there all the time. Say, you guys could have had this money. It could have been your money. But since you didn't want to sell me the vehicle, perfectly fine. I had to go somewhere else to buy the exact same car, but now you're going to service the maintenance on it.
Right.
So
now, why is it good to buy a car at the end of the month? Why is that good?
It's really not. There is no great or not great time. If your situation is ideal for you, that's great. That whole understanding, buying a car at the end of the month is for dealerships. They may not have hit their quota. They may not have hit what they need to. So for them, yes, you're probably going to get a better deal. But how much of a better deal if your situation is already ideal? If it's already ideal, how much of a better deal are you going to get? You're not going to get a better deal. Those deals only really apply to those who are in that 500, 600, just barely hitting that 700. 700 is where you more or less, you're going to be at 2 or 3%. You're not going to get any lower than that. They're not going to give you a car at 0. Just not going to do it. They're not.
Right.
They're not.
I will say this: the worst time to buy a vehicle, okay, is tax time.
And
I know everybody can agree with that because the marketing and the advertising is just brutal around tax time.
I'm just going to say, as the credit person, it's never a bad time if your situation is okay and ideal. It's never. You don't hear rich people talking about, oh, I can't get or I can't do. And the only reason why is because they always have the resources to do. So when it comes to us, the credit is our hindrance, and we have to stop thinking that, oh, I can't do because of my credit. Well, if I maintain, monitor, and do the right things by my credit, guess what? I'm never going to be in a position of can't doing. One of my students, and this was a student who I'm still to this day like, oh my God, I'm so proud of this kid because he was one that I didn't think was going to be able to do so well because he came from a majorly broken home. He was disheveled. He was a Hispanic kid who I was like, well, if you make it, great. And I, catered to making sure that all of my students, no matter who they were, understood the principles. He calls me about 2 weeks ago and tells me, "Yo, Mr. Glover, thanks to all of the information that you were able to give to me. And, I've been working on my credit. 760. Got an American Express. Just got him an Apple credit card as well." But my whole point was that even those who don't think can end up surprising the bejesus out of you and taking their whole financial situation. And now he's so set. All he has to do is maintain it. That's all he has to do. Doesn't have to do anything else. All he has to do is apply the same principles that got him there and maintain it. Gotcha. He's not a kid who he's not someone who has a lot of resources, meaning his income. He can build off of. He's at the lowest part of his income structure that as a teenager you can be. So now that he's making more income as he gets older, if he maintains that credit methodology and understanding, his credit's only going to increase. And that's why
I feel like it's so important for at least everyone to start from when they're in school. And I can't stress that enough. You'll have all of that knowledge to, just like you said, maintain it during out the years, to where it's steady. So even if, you do have one crazy job that you just ended up saying, you know what, nah, I don't want to work there, but now I quit, you still will be able to decide to have that maintenance that's already there, because of your past. And this is my thing too. why are we getting punished for past mistakes? You know, like I'm not understanding that. Things that you said that we can't control, things that we didn't have no foot in. Why are we still getting punished for being 38, 40, 32 years old for things that happened to us when we were 5? And what I mean
I'm
by
gonna tell
that
you why.
is the credit.
I'm explain that. I'm explain that, and this comes from households. This it's not every family, but mostly Black American families. What happens is when we're children, this is like even me, when we're children, our parents, and this is the God honest truth. Sometimes there's an old saying, the truth hurts, sometimes the truth does hurt. What happens is our parents utilize our names in credits. They utilize our names to get telephone bills. They utilize our names because remember, back in those days, if your mother, just use an example, which is from experience. Back in those days, if your mother owned, say she owed a phone bill, she couldn't pay the phone bill. They cut the phone off. All you gotta do is call the phone company and say, "Oh, well, I'm Kia Senior, and or where you work at? I work for Lenny's Carpet."
Yeah.
So what they used to do was actually call Lenny's Carpet, and it could be you with another phone number and say, "Oh yeah, she works for me, blah 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 blah," and then they give you credit. Our parents destroyed our credit from day one. And that's why I said about the truth hurts, because they have done that. They have used our credit for like cable bills. You guys wasn't even born. When me and Mr. Glover was born, we had cable boxes. We had, what was that? The cable was what, $5 a month? And we had cable boxes, and our parents used to actually steal cable from the neighbors downstairs. Put a wire outside the window and steal cable. This is the kind of stuff that destroyed a lot of our families. And then what happens is, when they messed our credit up, it lingered on for so long. It stayed on the credit report, and we never did anything about it. And that's why sometimes you look at your credit report, you say, wait a minute, I never had this. It's because your parents applied for the credit in your name.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's another thing which is funny. Why is it that if you're a working person and you apply for a loan, which has happened, you can't get the loan, but your 80-year-old grandmother who only gets Social Security applies for the loan as a co-signer and you get the loan? I just can't understand that.
I don't either.
And Tyrone, explain that to me, please.
Maybe because it's a guaranteed check coming in, because it's a guaranteed Social Security, you know, like
I would say maybe because high risk, because they know that she probably got some sort of policy. So if she croak, they can get their money. You know,
well,
that's the way I guess.
Yeah, like that's the way that I'm taking that too, because
collateral.
Even in those types of situations, there's never a win-win. What if she dies the following day? Because she is someone who's of a aged population, and with COVID, they were dropping like flies. So that in itself now really doesn't. It like I keep saying, that hashtag, make it make sense. It really doesn't make sense. You would think that the younger person whose life expectancy is probably maybe at least, if that person knew they were doing the as the co-signer is 30 years older than that person, you would think that doesn't add up there. Yes, even if you do have a guaranteed Social Security, but a guaranteed Social Security of someone African American is what, maybe $1,300 a month. So that itself isn't really explaining it. For me, what makes the most sense is her pattern of history. How has she used her credit over her 80 years? If she's always been someone who's been in that high 700, then that shows a consistency of what the banks are more or less looking at. They're not looking at her income per se. They're looking at, this is somebody who really takes heed in making sure that her credit remains in that higher tier. So that's probably why they're looking at it saying, oh, I'd rather give to someone who's in a higher tier as a co-signer versus to giving someone who's had this roller coaster.
Right.
But they don't, for some reason, I feel like they don't believe in change, though, you know, and someone's ability to change. Because even though, you know, our credit was wrong at 5 years old, but that doesn't mean like our credit can be wrong at the age of 30. You know, that doesn't mean that we're not trying to rebuild and reestablish our credit, you know. Right. So it's still, basically, we're still getting punished from being 5 years old. Because just like you said, a history a longer line of things that were stable.
And that's why I'm saying that's important to monitor, making sure that if you do see something, if you're 5 years old, if you were 5 years old and you got something on your credit report from that length of time, it's already out of the statute of limitation, which is 7 years. So that should have long been removed. And even items that are on your credit report, if you just down to the smallest penny, you can get those. It's not, and I want to clarify on these words that they use. Dispute. A dispute means, if you look it up per the definition, a dispute means something I didn't do. So Equifax, Stranger and Experian, by them indicating you can dispute what's on your credit report, sets you up for failure because you're disputing something that technically you have done. So technically you're committing fraud. But if you challenge something, and you got to remember too, it's not going in front of a person. E-Oscar, look that up. E-Oscar. E-Oscar is now what's evaluating credit scores or credit information. Your letter that you sit and well orchestrate and mail it in. A person might open it, which I doubt that too. Might even have an automated process now that's opening the letter and sliding it through. I don't know how that process works, but I know now that it's not a person. A person is not reading your letter going, oh, Jay, oh, Kia, really? You had this type of, oh my God, I can't believe.
Yep, I get it. They're just that data, just like you said. Yep.
That computer is not, it is not, and it's been designed to eliminate all of those emotions that what a human would do and go, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to make a decision here. I'm going to make an executive decision to allow for Kia not to get penalized because I'm the person. A computer's not going to do that. It's not. Right. So you have to make sure that your letter is orchestrated. So if you are challenging something in, that the computer gets it as it's scanning. It's got these keywords that it's not going to be able to identify, and it's going to spit it out, and it's going to send it to a human, and the human is now going to have to make that decision. So,
I'm going to make it, I'm going to add one more point. Y'all can take the rest. It's funny. I mean, me growing up, see, my situation was different, but I just watched. See, my grandmother, basically, she only had a 6th grade education, but she was good with numbers upstairs. I mean, she just adds numbers just like that. And I used to watch and say, well, if I need $10, she used to go on her breast and just pull out this whole knot full of money, man. And then I watched money in the mattress and stuff like that. And no one never touched that money. That money was always there. And sometimes I say to myself, I really wish you can go back to that, where you could put the money under the mattress, but you need credit for everything. You can't rent a car unless you have credit. If you purchase water now, you need credit. You need credit for, even when you go to the doctors, they want to see a debit card. They're even using it for ID. It's different now. But I just, and I just really wish it can get back to that where you can save money, put it in a mattress. It can be emergency money. But it's hard because when you're spending a significant amount of the money, they want to know where the money's coming from.
Well, it's called evolution. As you evolve, you want to get away from those situations. Again, I got 2 scenarios where one, somebody, same thing. You said in the mattress. Well, somebody's house burnt up. Oh, gone. All that money's gone.
Yeah.
Scenario, same thing. Mattress situation. Daughter thought they was doing something great for their elderly parent or grandparent. And
got rid of the mattress.
Exactly. So it's really it's a double-edged sword. No matter how you think about it in that aspect, if someone doesn't know, they could be thinking they're doing some good for you and actually doing more harm. So our financial institutions were designed to, again, give us that security from the bank robbing the financial institution, and also security from the financial institution trading our money on these vast opportunities that are out there when it comes to assets. Now, the banks, and this is another topic that we can talk about in another later episode, where the banks, I now teach trading, and like we've been talking about the candlesticks, Mr. Anderson. and making sure that you're following the candlesticks and knowing what your trade. So trading itself is another means of being able to gain more access to what we don't have. Access to credit we don't have, access to proper financial institutions that are going to grow our money versus just taking our money and holding on to it. And then every time we want to have access to it, whether we use an ATM that is that bank or whether we use an ATM that is another bank, you're still going to get hit with fees regardless. And that's the part that I think has to be regulated. But this is, again, going back to my earlier comment where I said, if Congress doesn't do its part, it's not going to regulate those that it's making money off of. And until they fix those pieces, we're going to have these unfortunate circumstances that have us constantly 30 years later questioning why, or 50, 60 years later questioning why we can't keep our money in our mattresses. That for me, it's not something that I would want to do. If I could know that I can get 6, 8, 10, 12% annually off my money that I give to a financial institution, that should work for me. Mm-hmm. That should be something that I should be okay with, because if they can give me that much, how much are they getting? And these are the questions that we need to be asking. If Bank of America can take my monthly paycheck and I can use whatever I need to pay my bills with, and then have some reserve left over to put into the savings, and then watch that grow over week to week to week to week, month to month, and year to year, and so forth and so on, then why is that return so small? You're doing exactly that. I know as a trader now, I can do the exact same thing. If I could take 800, 900,000, 2,000, 3,000, I did it over the summer. I did it. I took $4,000 and I turned it into 30-something $1,000.
I seen it, right?
Well, you're gonna teach me that trick.
Link in the description
I'll
below,
be prepared
guys,
in like 3 weeks.
Tyrone. His description will be in the link below. He's going to be doing courses, so you guys can definitely reach out to him. It will be in the description below.
Excellent. Yeah, but that's what this new era of what individuals like myself, I call myself specifically the dress down CEO. I do not believe in getting all suit and tie. Nothing against Sigma Lenny. I totally can get. But I'm someone who's just going to keep it so real. I'm someone who's going to tell it to you like you need to hear it. I'm not sugarcoating it any longer. I'm not Willy Wonka. So again, don't think for a second that this is all about making it pleasing to the ear or pleasing to the mind with all of these sweetnesses and pleasantries. That's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell it to you exactly in the manner in which adults should be able to consume this information, and keeping it jovial and making it a lot of fun. But overall, there's nothing sexy about credit. There's nothing sexy about talking about, oh my God, I gotta do this. Yes, you gotta do it, but there's everything sexy about when you can go and you can get that car, when you can get that credit card, when you know that, oh my God, I'm doing my mortgage, and a 30-day process literally takes 28 days. And you're like, oh my God, I'm able to move into my house. Or, when you're in the situations where we can now benefit off of this American experiment. This was an experiment, still is an experiment, because we can clearly see with the deep divisions that we now find ourselves in, all because of somebody previous leader who didn't believe that, again, a large percentage of the population is not worthy. This is what a previous leader of this country that we've never had since Abraham Lincoln, back in those time frames where they knew that they had to do something, but they just couldn't figure out what they had to do, which was stand them right in the face. Make everybody, the Emancipation Proclamation was to give everybody the same understanding. But today we're seeing a lot of that being reversed, all because Anglo-Saxons, primarily evangelical males, are so stuck on stupid, and they're wanting to reverse a lot of what progress has already been made. But us four right now, have started and sparked a conversation that I can only hope goes further than just us four. That it reverberates around our communities, within our social circles, that everyone should now be looking at, hey, you know what? Yeah, I got to do better. I got to do better. If you have kids, it's almost a necessity. I don't have any kids, so I can honestly for myself say I'm going to be fine. But I have a host of nephews and nieces. I'm someone now embedded in the educational field that I want to make sure that all of these kids that I have the ability to see on a daily basis also equally start going home and asking their parents, hey, mom, what's our credit score? Do we own this property, or is this something that, you know, we're renting? Why do we rent? Why do you rent versus why not owning? You know, asking those questions. You know, do I have a piggy bank, or not even a piggy bank? Do I have a green light card? Do I have a something that's teaching our kids already how to start putting things away? I tell my kids now, not my kids, but the students, stop thinking about stuff and start thinking about owning stuff. It's a much difference than having stuff versus owning stuff. Huge difference. Even though you got that stuff word in there, and they always like, well, what is the difference, Mr. Glover? Well, okay, I'm gonna tell you the difference. Having stuff is you go out and you spend your money to buy something, and you're like, woohoo, look what I got. Woo, I'm doing so good for myself. No, that's not doing good for yourself. Yes, you have stuff to show to people, great. But if you own stuff, if you have ownership in a home, ownership in a business, ownership where you can see the profits, you're not only going to be able to own, but you're equally going to be able to turn that into, if you want to, more stuff.
Yep, an investment pretty much. And that's what I'm trying to teach my 13-year-old right now. My 13-year-old sister and son, they both have green light cards. Just to teach them how to save. You know, I am teaching my son about a credit score as of right now. He's getting it from the home. He's not getting it from outside. You know, within this week, we'll be owning our home. I am teaching my kids how to own a home, how to build a business, you know, and I'm building from the ground up by myself, you know, and it's just, it starts from home. It starts from what you know at home. But then again, it starts from also not just the parents before us, because a lot of the parents before us didn't know about this information, you know, so it's hard for them to understand as far as them teaching us. But for this generation right now, we just got to go, just like you said, go out there and just go find the information.
Right. And we don't really have to find the information. As I stated, the information is there. If you talk to anyone,
no, it's there, but we still have to go lurking. Because like I just said, if our parents can't teach us something that they don't know,
no question,
then we have to literally go out there and go find it, you know, like I know, you know, my grandmother didn't know nothing about owning a home, you know, they didn't know about owning a business and stuff like that. They, you know, they didn't know, like we, you know, I come from a long line of, you know, high school dropouts and welfare recipients and things of that nature. I don't come from a line of college graduates. I don't come from a line of business owners. I don't come from a line of homeowners. So things like that, I had to go out and go physically teach myself and bring it home to my babies. And that's pretty much what I did. I brought it home to my brother because now he has a bigger understanding of how to do this. I brought it home to my sister because now she has a bigger understanding of how to do this. Oh, and I even taught knowledge to my mom because now she's like, okay, if my daughter knows how to do this, now she can help me and teach me now. So it kind of starts from you going to find your information and be willing to find it.
Thanks to your father.
And that's really key. That's key. That's key. But what I'm saying as far as today, I bet you can find anyone within your circle who could direct you to credit somewhere, someone who knows how. And this is what this is all about now. To create those pipelines, to create those, they use a Harriet Tubman reference, those underground railroads that would allow for us to prosper. And this is what we now have to create for ourselves. The state of your credit is to help you on a monthly basis. Where am I in life when it comes to my credit? I don't want to have to, the day of a particular understanding because the car broke down or because now the landlord won't fix the heater or, you know, things of that nature where I have no other choice. And without having a decent credit profile, it's going to prevent. So that's where more or less, yes, back 20 years, 30 years, those references are always good to have as what we should not be doing. Those are always good for those. But I always tell everybody, we got to stop going back in the past, because every time we make 2, 10, 15 steps backwards, we only make 1 or 2 steps forward. So
or we're still living in those moments in those times, you know, and we can live in those moments right now, at those times. Because back then, just like you said about the credit, people were putting credit in our names. Now you need to report, or is this person 18 or over? Because if they're not, you are not allowed to put that credit in their name. And you're going to see that with every single thing that pops up right now. Right now, as we speak, are they 18 and over? You're going to see it on a cable bill. You're going to see it on a phone bill. You're going to see it on several bills now. It's not the way that it kind of was before. No, it's not that easy to put stuff in a kid's name anymore. No. I promise you.
That's the one good thing that the laws have now protected individuals from happening. So you always want those types of circumstances, always. But it's
Mr. Glover.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. Okay, one more question. Explain them to this, the situation me and you went through, the DoorDash and the Uber Eats problem.
What? Like?
Explain to them about that.
Hold on.
What the good and the downfall of that is.
The DoorDash and Uber Eats problem.
One of the reasons why I do what I do. This is my little guy. Not my little guy per se, but this is Jax. And Jax is going to stay with me for a little bit. So I got to wrap it up here because he's going to require all of my attention. But you were saying that Uber Eats. Did you say hi to everybody? Say hello.
Yeah.
Say hi.
What's up, Jax?
Hi, Jax.
Oh, okay. But as far as that Uber Eats, help me understand that again. Can you take off his jacket?
The situation that me and you occurred with Uber Eats and that DoorDash about how much money we spending on just delivering the stuff we can do it ourselves and what they charge.
Yes, those fees and situations that you find yourself with DoorDash and even your online banking facilities as well. Just be careful, because they're going to hit you with all kinds of stuff. You're paying double sometimes for something that you can go pick up yourself. A lot of food that you would get from Starbucks or Wendy's or McDonald's or wherever you're doing your DoorDashes. You got to remember, they're going to charge you. They're going to already have instilled in it a delivery fee and another, I can't remember what fee they called it. I think they called it a service fee. So you got a delivery fee and a service fee, and then you're going to turn around and give a tip as well.
Yeah.
You're going to be paying double whatever your original amount was. So it's not saying that these in there. I think HBO has a series coming out. I don't know if it's HBO or Showtime, but they got a series coming out about the Uber CEO. Say he was a beast. He was a beast.
That was Travis Kalowski.
Can't remember his last name, but yes, they say he was a beast. He was a monster. He didn't care. He just did whatever he wanted to do to make sure that this Uber situation got out there, and it's now out there. And nothing bad. I was always really content. But once I started looking at them fees, once you start adding up those fees on a yearly basis or a monthly basis, depending on how often you're using that service, that becomes a problem.
Yeah, especially what they did to me and you that day. I mean, we order our food and we're waiting. The food is not there. I go downstairs. The food is outside on the ground. Am I right?
Yes.
It was it was literally on the ground. So I turned around and asked the guy. I said, "Well, where's the food?" He says, "Oh, I left it on the ground." Why would you leave the food on the ground? He says, "I don't want no problem. I don't want no COVID." I said, "What are you talking about? You got like 10 masks on. You talking about COVID?"
That's true.
You gotta watch the C word, guys.
Exactly. but you know what? But the point I'm trying to make is that he went and he challenged them on the phone and removed that whole credit situation from it. That's the point I was trying to make. That
you could have just got your money back. It's
Right.
simple. You could have just got all of your money back. There's an app on there where it says help, and it says, hey, my food was not delivered to me properly. I want a refund. And they will refund it for you.
That's it.
That's it. That's all.
Sorry, I just knocked off all my lighting. My apologies.
It's no
And
problem.
that's what he did. And that's what he did. He got his money back.
Mm-hmm. Like they can't control that. If it's even if it's a lick off, if there's anything off in any of those orders, you are able to get your money back from them. But just like he said, it costs so much more of getting these items instead of putting that same money into your gas, okay, and going to go get it yourself. And I can say that because I do both.
That is it. That is it. But I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to cut this short.
Yeah. I was actually gonna say any final thoughts. We're gonna start with you, Tyrone, then we're gonna go to Jay, and then we're gonna go to Kia.
My final thought is that we continue to keep having these types of understanding, these types of conversations, because they only allow for our community to see that, hey, wait a minute, wow, that guy looks just like me, or hey, wait a minute, that girl looks just like me. You know, it's now overdue time. And if we start again today, there's nothing wrong with this, and we send this out. So you're going to publish, you're going to put it out there, and then the rest of us, if we put it out there on our social media pages, then we ask for somebody else. Yes, go ahead. Then we ask for somebody else to put it on their social media pages. Then it starts to, again, create that dialogue. So overall, I do this for my nephews, my nieces. I do this for the public. This is all information that I believe free. Share. Let's make sure that we're not going into these next years still struggling with the same type of situations and circumstances when it comes to our credit. So thank you, Sigma Lenny, for having me. Jay, you know I appreciate you. Kia, it's always a pleasure because you are again, I keep saying it, the women are doing amazing things. So stay strong, stay positive, stay on top of what you as an African-American woman has to do, and just know that there's at least one, and I'm almost sure I can speak for my other two brothers on here. We're going to support our sisters, making sure that they have strong brothers' shoulders to stand on when these times of trials get real tough. And equally, I'm sure the sentiment applies to us as well. Strong women out there, make sure that you're helping us inexperienced brothers understand that we as a community are going to get through what we need to get through.
Jay, any last words?
Yeah, last words is there.
Stop. Thank you. Sorry, Jay.
That's all right. The 3-letter words, CYS. Those are the letters for the month. CYS. Control your spending. Whatever you do not spend on unnecessary stuff that you do not need. Take your money and put it somewhere else and save your money. Save your money. And this is a good platform. We need to do more of these, not only on credit, but other issues that appeal to our community. So appreciate you having me on.
Kia, any last words?
Yes, my last words, and I can't stress this enough. We need to start teaching these kids about credit scores in school. I cannot stress this enough. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay. And I'm not even going to say if. The schools are not doing it, then let it start from home, parents. You know, come on, we got to be strong enough. We got to teach our kids just by saving nickel from nickel, penny to penny, dime to dime. Okay, it takes nothing to teach your kid how to put a penny in a piggy bank and save it all up. It takes zero time to say, you know what, instead of buying that's for $1, buy this for 50 cents. You know, it takes nothing for you to say, you know what, we can wait for that because then we're going to get bigger later. There is nothing wrong with just preaching that. You know, there's nothing wrong with trying it. There's nothing wrong with doing it. And then, like I said, it's just basically just teaching one another, just being there for one another, you know, and, you know, just the feelings of having people around and having your community and keeping everybody abroad, you know, that's just it. And just being close to one another. And just like I said, it's just teaching, making sure each other's teachings are on point, making sure that we're learning from one another. Just like Mr. Glover said, it's free to give out information. It's free to say, hey, you know what, you know what, bro, look, this is what you're going through. Let me help you with this information to make it better. It's free. It doesn't take a phone call. Sometimes it takes a text message. Some, like right now, it's taken all of us to come together right now to be on this live chat. And yes, I want to discuss more important issues that are out there, world, because there's a lot. You know, there's a lot of struggles that us as African Americans go through by ourselves. Not only just African Americans, but women, children, and our Black and African American men. So yes, there are issues that we still have that I want to see change for my kids, for you guys' kids, for my grandkids, great grandkids. I need it. Change needs to happen. But thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and my last thoughts, guys, is thank you guys for tuning in, and definitely definitely check your credit. If you have to, go to one of the credit reporting sites, like freecreditreport.com, I think one of them, or you can go to the agencies themselves, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. You can actually go to their website, and you can every year you're actually granted a free credit report. So I advise you strongly to go and check your credit report and see what's on there, because you don't know what's in the dark, and things can appear on there, and it might not even be yours. That's why you say, such as Mr. Glover, you don't dispute, you challenge, right? So that's very important. So that's all I'm going to say, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. This was a great, great, great show. I really enjoyed everybody on here. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And the description for Mr. Glover and Miss Kia is going to be in the description below. I advise you guys to go and follow them, and just to kind of see what they can offer you and how you can benefit from that. This is the Sigma Lenny Show. Like, comment, subscribe. We out.
Stay blessed.